My name is Brenda Lowe, and I'm 30 years old. For most of my adult life, I believed I had built something steady, something real. My marriage to Jake, who's 34, had grown into this warm, lived in rhythm that felt like home. We had our little routines, our mismatched coffee mugs, our two beautiful children, a 6-year-old daughter who loved morning cartoons, and a 4-year-old son who insisted on sleeping with at least two stuffed animals at all times. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. And for a long time, it felt unshakable. But life doesn't warn you before it rips the floor out from under your feet. My sister Lily, also 34, had always been the wild card in our family. Where I had stability, she had chaos. Where I built a home, she burned through relationships like dry leaves in a fire pit. I used to tell myself she was just unlucky, but deep down I knew the truth. Lily was a walking red flag, someone who could turn a simple misunderstanding into a catastrophic explosion. Growing up, she was dramatic, magnetic, impossible to ignore, and somehow she always wanted what wasn't hers, including attention, including sympathy, including admiration. Back then, I didn't realize it might include Jake. I should have seen the warning signs. Tiny moments, odd comments, the way she sometimes watched him a little too closely when she thought no one was looking. But hindsight is cruel that way. It points out all the clues you missed, only after everything blows up in your face. 2 years ago, on our 6th wedding anniversary, my parents hosted a big family barbecue. It was one of those perfect warm evenings, the kind where lights are strung across the backyard and the smell of grilled food clings to everyone's clothes. The kids ran around laughing cousins chasing each other through the grass, while the adults chatted over drinks. For a moment, it felt like how families are supposed to be loud, messy, and full of love. Then Lily asked to talk to me alone. At first, I thought she finally wanted to be genuine, maybe even offer a heartfelt anniversary wish. She smiled, hugged me, and for a second, it felt real. Warm, normal. I asked about her new boyfriend, trying to keep the conversation light. But then her expression shifted. She looked at me with this eerie calmness, like she had rehearsed what she was about to say. "Brenda, there's something you deserve to know," she whispered. And then she said it. She claimed that after Jacob and I married, he and she had an affair, a secret one, an emotional connection that turned physical. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. "Lily, what kind of joke is this?" I forced a laugh. But she didn't laugh. Her eyes were steady, dead serious, almost proud. She went on saying Jake had confided in her about our constant fighting, how he supposedly felt unseen by me, how they started meeting up and texting privately. Every word crawled under my skin, cold and poisonous. My stomach dropped. A single tear threatened to fall, but it wasn't from believing her. It was from the shock of how easily she could tell such a story. I asked her to show me proof. Anything. That's when she faltered. Her confident mask cracked ever so slightly. I had screenshots, she stammered, but I deleted them. "Brenda, you're my sister. You should trust me with or without evidence." And in that moment, everything clicked. Her eyes, her tone, the overly detailed story. It wasn't truth, it was performance. I had watched Lily manipulate people for years. I had seen her twist narratives, plant doubts, manufacture crises out of thin air. And I knew that look, that subtle panic when she realized she wasn't convincing someone. "You're lying," I whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Her eyes hardened. Her voice cracked, then rose. "I can't believe you don't trust me, after everything I've kept inside for your sake." Within minutes, she stormed out straight to the crowd. And then she detonated the lie. Suddenly, people surrounded us. Lily was crying, yelling, claiming Jake had blackmailed her, seduced her, emotionally manipulated her. My parents' faces dropped in horror. The disgust in their eyes was immediate, electric. My dad pointed at Jake. "How could you do this to Lily? How could you play with her feelings?" It didn't matter that Jake was standing there stunned, utterly confused. It didn't matter that Lily hadn't shown a shred of proof. It didn't matter that I was the one who would have been cheated on. All that mattered to them was Lily's tears. I stood there feeling like a stranger in my own family, watching them tear down my husband, my partner, for something I knew he hadn't done. It felt like being abandoned by everyone I had once relied on. When we finally got home, Jake sat on the edge of our bed, hands in his hair, still dazed. "Brenda, what just happened?" he whispered. I felt something inside me break and harden at the same time. I sat beside him, took his hand. "I believe you," I said quietly. "I know you didn't cheat." And I meant it. Lily's lie didn't destroy my marriage, but it cracked everything around it. And I had no idea just how deep those fractures would go. In the days following the barbecue, it felt like a fog had descended over our lives, a thick, suffocating haze of humiliation, confusion, and disbelief. Jake barely spoke, and when he did, it was always in that quiet voice he used when he was trying not to break. I didn't cry until the fourth day, and once I started, I couldn't stop. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart clenched. But the messages weren't sympathy or support, they were accusations. Cousins, aunts, family, friends, even some of my parents' neighbors who'd seen Lily crying at the barbecue, every single one of them had something to say. I'm so sorry you're going through this, Brenda, but you deserve the truth. Jake should be ashamed. Lily didn't deserve to be treated like that. It was surreal, like my life had been hijacked, rewritten, handed over to a stranger, and I was being forced to watch from a distance. The worst part, my own parents refused to speak to me unless it was about Jake's supposed betrayal. My mother's voice was icy the last time she called. Brenda, denial won't help your marriage. We're only trying to support you. But she wasn't supporting me. She was supporting Lily's performance. I'd always known my parents favored her subtly at times, blatantly at others. But this was different. This was devotion to the point of delusion. The kind where they would rather damage every relationship in their lives than question Lily's tears. Jake and I held on to each other through those early weeks. Every night we talked until exhaustion shut our eyes. He opened up about how deeply betrayed he felt not by my belief, but by my family's willingness to condemn him without evidence. I've never felt so humiliated, he whispered one night, not even when I was a kid and got suspended for something I didn't do. Your dad looked at me like I was the scum on the bottom of his shoe. I squeezed his hand. They're wrong. They're all wrong. He nodded but didn't smile. Some wounds don't close quickly. Over time, the constant tension chipped away at us, at our routines, at our ability to breathe. It became clear that for our mental health and our kids, we needed distance. We stopped attending family gatherings. We muted group chats. We moved our holidays to just the four of us. And slowly, painfully, it became our new normal. Our daughter asked once in her tiny, heartbreaking voice, "Why doesn't Grandma visit anymore?" Jake froze. I swallowed the rage and sadness lodged in my throat and said, "Sometimes grown-ups argue, sweetheart. But Mommy and Daddy love you very much." She nodded, confused. Our son didn't understand at all. I envied him for that. Meanwhile, Lily thrived. Every time one of my relatives posted a family picture, she was front and center, smiling sweetly, collecting sympathy, like trophies. She became the survivor in the story, the brave woman wronged by the husband of her own sister, the one everyone believed needed protection. I saw the comments under her pictures. "You're so strong, so proud of you for speaking up." That must have been so traumatic. Traumatic for her. It was almost laughable. Almost. But the truth is, it hurt. Watching people applaud the person who lied about tearing apart my family, it felt like being stabbed with a dull knife, over and over again. Jake stopped using Facebook altogether. I can't blame him. 2 years passed in this uneasy limbo. 2 years of silence from my parents unless they wanted to criticize me. 2 years of Lily looking radiant and adored on social media. 2 years of holding together what mattered most, my marriage, my children, my sanity. And then suddenly everything cracked open again. I wasn't expecting it. Honestly, I thought I had finally become numb to my family's drama. But one afternoon, while scrolling absently through Facebook, I saw it. A photo of Lily, beaming, wearing a sparkling engagement ring. Caption: "I've finally found true love after surviving the darkest betrayal of my life." I felt my stomach twist. Her fiancé's name was Mark, a handsome man I'd never met. They looked blissfully in love in every photo, but below the pictures were the comments that made my blood run cold. "You deserve happiness after what happened. So glad you got away from that toxic environment. This is the fresh start you needed." Some cousins even wrote, "We always knew you'd rise above what Brenda put you through." What I put her through. I stared at the screen, feeling a slow burn rise inside me. It was anger, yes, but also something sharper, something heavier. It was betrayal, again. Not from Lily, hers I expected, but from the family I once trusted. I closed the app, but the images stayed burned in my mind. Lily smiling, Lily glowing, Lily twisting the past to make herself the heroic survivor. She was rewriting history again, and this time she had a whole new man believing her. I didn't know it then, but Mark wasn't just another boyfriend. He was the catalyst that would unravel everything Lily had built, and eventually expose every lie she'd ever told. The days after Lily's engagement announcement felt strangely quiet, as if the storm that had consumed our lives 2 years earlier had suddenly started spinning again, but this time far away, preparing for a new strike. I tried to ignore it, tried to bury myself in work, in the kids, in anything that wasn't Lily's smiling face plastered across my Facebook feed. But then the calls started. At first it was once, then twice, then 5 times in the same morning. Unknown number, no voicemail, no text. Spam, probably. I shrugged it off. But the repeated buzzing created this unnerving pressure in my chest, like some invisible thread was pulling me toward a disaster I couldn't see yet. Finally, during lunch break at work, exhausted and annoyed, I answered. Hello? The voice that exploded through the speaker wasn't a voice, it was a scream. You ruined my life. Brenda. I jerked the phone away from my ear. My heart shot up into my throat. Lily, I whispered, even though I already knew. She didn't respond with words. She responded with fury, raw, wild, animalistic. You selfish, pathetic. You always do this. You can't stand me being happy. How dare you pretend you're innocent? It was a flood of insults, each more vicious than the last. She didn't pause for breath. It was like she had been waiting, boiling for the chance to unleash the full force of her rage. My hand trembled. Lily, what are you talking about? What happened? Silence, just for a heartbeat. Then her voice dropped to a guttural, trembling growl. Mark left me because of you. And before I could say another word, she hung up. I stood in the office hallway in stunned silence, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like a broken beehive. My mind spun. Mark left her. Why would that be because of me? I hadn't spoken to him. I hadn't spoken to anyone in her life for years. My stomach twisted. Something was very, very wrong. There was only one person who might know the truth. Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom had been the lone branch of my family who refused to get swept into Lily's delusion 2 years ago. He was the only one who looked me in the eye and said, I know Jake. I know you. Something about Lily's story doesn't add up. He had been my lifeline then. I hoped he still was. I called him immediately. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm but heavy. Brenda. Tom, something happened. Lily just called me. She's losing it. She said Mark left her. Do you know anything? A long sigh came through the phone, so long that my heart started racing. Yes, he said finally. I know everything. I gripped the phone tighter. Please, tell me. He cleared his throat. Mark didn't just leave her. He called off the engagement. Publicly, loudly, and... Brenda, it's bad. I felt a cold shiver run across my skin. Start from the beginning, I whispered. Mark started noticing strange things, Tom said. Lily's behavior, the mood swings, the jealousy, the control. It reminded him of stories she'd told from her past. Stories that didn't make sense. So he dug. Dug, I repeated. Into her family history, Tom explained. He asked questions. And the relatives who still think Lily is a saint. They couldn't help themselves. They spilled everything. The story she told about Jake, the affair, the drama, the fallout. I clenched my jaw. So Mark believed the lie. For a little while, Tom said carefully, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, so he checked her phone. My heart dropped. What did he find? Tom hesitated. Brenda, she was cheating on him. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and electric. With who, I asked. A guy from a dating app. Explicit messages. Plans to meet. Pictures. Tom exhaled sharply. There was no way to spin it. Mark confronted her. She panicked. And that's when she confessed. I stopped breathing for a moment. Confessed to... what exactly? To everything he said. She told him the affair with Jake never happened. That she made it up. My knees buckled. I slid into a chair in the break room, staring at the wall as if it could somehow explain the world's cruelty. She admitted it, I whispered. Yes, Tom answered softly. She laid it all out to try to save her engagement. But it backfired. Mark was horrified, not just by the cheating, but by the lie. By how far she went. By how she weaponized her own family. I pressed a hand to my forehead. A small broken laugh escaped me, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of it all finally threatened to crush me. After years of destroying us, the truth came out not through justice or confrontation or apology, but because Lily wanted to save her engagement. Tom continued, voice somber. The entire family knows now. They're calling me. Your parents are devastated. Everyone is scrambling. Scrambling. For what? To fix their image. To rewrite history again. He added quietly, they know they wronged you. They know they wronged Jake. And they're trying to gather the courage to reach out. I laughed again, sharp or hollow. Now they want the truth. Now they want us back. Tom's silence was answer enough. I closed my eyes. The break room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Tom, I whispered. Lily said I ruined her life. He exhaled heavily. She ruined her own life, Brenda. And she's terrified of facing the consequences. The consequences she had postponed for years. The consequences she had forced onto me and Jake. The consequences she had woven into our daily lives through lies, manipulation, and attention-seeking theatrics. But now that the truth had exploded, now that the engagement had crumbled, now that she'd lost the one man who believed in her, Lily wanted someone to blame. And of course, that someone was me. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh or scream. All I knew was that the reckoning had finally begun, and Lily's world was about to collapse in ways she never anticipated. The fallout from Lily's implosion spread through the family like a shockwave. One moment everything was quiet, eerily quiet, and then suddenly my phone lit up every hour with messages I had never expected to see again. At first I didn't open them. My Aunt Claire texted, "We were wrong. Please, Brenda, let's talk." My cousin Renee wrote, "I should have believed you. I'm so sorry." Even my mother's best friend, who had always idolized Lily, sent a long apologetic paragraph. But none of those messages hit me as hard as the ones from my parents. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds if I'm honest. My father. "We should talk. We made a mistake. Please answer. Let us see the kids." My mother. "I don't know how to begin making this right, but I'm begging you to give us a chance. I haven't slept. I can't believe her. Please call me." I stared at those texts feeling nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, not forgiveness. Just numbness. 2 years of silence. 2 years of being treated like strangers. 2 years of letting them believe I was the villain in a story Lily fabricated out of thin air. They didn't reach out because they loved me. They reached out because the truth forced them to. I wasn't ready to open that door. Lily, on the other hand, had gone quiet. Completely quiet. Her phone disconnected. Her social media wiped clean. No cryptic captions, no dramatic stories, no attention-seeking posts. My parents said she had locked herself in her childhood bedroom for days, refusing to speak to them. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy, but another part, the part that remembered every accusatory stare, every insult thrown at Jake, every moment my children asked why their grandparents disappeared, felt something very different. Relief, sharp and cold. I didn't want her suffering, but I wasn't going to carry the guilt of her lies anymore. One night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat on the couch scrolling through Instagram and saw a message request. From Mark. For a moment I hesitated, but then I opened it. Mark. "Hey, Brenda. I hope you don't mind me messaging you. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I should have spoken up sooner about my doubts. I didn't want to cause more trouble for your family." Jake was beside me, quietly reading over my shoulder. His eyebrows lifted in surprise, but he didn't say anything. I typed back. "It's not your fault. I'm sorry she put you through all of this. You didn't deserve what happened either." He responded within seconds. "Mark, I really loved her, you know. I thought she was misunderstood. I wanted to be the one who finally saw her for who she was." A bitter ache settled in my chest. I understood that feeling too well. Me, you cared for her with good intentions. She took advantage of that. It's not on you. We talked for almost an hour, carefully, respectfully. Two people who had both been caught in the gravitational pull of the same storm. When the conversation ended, I felt a strange mixture of sorrow and clarity. Mark was healing in his own quiet way. Maybe we all were. Jake leaned his head against the back of the couch. "He sounds like a decent guy," he murmured. "He is," I said. "He deserved better." Jake nodded. "So did you." I didn't respond. Some truths hurt more than lies. Meanwhile, my parents' attempts intensified. They started calling repeatedly, sometimes twice in the same hour. My father left long voicemails filled with trembling apologies as though repeating, "We were wrong enough. Times would magically erase everything they had done." My mother sent photos of handmade crafts my daughter had given her years ago. "I miss them," she wrote. "I miss you. Please don't shut us out." The guilt rose like a tide inside me, slow, suffocating. I wasn't an unfeeling person. I wasn't immune to the pain of watching people I loved realize the enormity of their mistake. But I also knew something deeply important. Forgiveness is not a switch. Trust is not a bandage. And wounds that deep don't close overnight. Jake said very little about my parents, but that silence spoke volumes. He didn't push me toward reconciliation. He didn't discourage it either. He simply let me navigate the complicated emotions while he stood quietly beside me. That was his strength, steady, grounded, patient. Something Lily never appreciated and always coveted. As for Lily, she didn't reach out at all. But she wasn't done causing damage. A week after the phone call from hell, one of my cousins told me Lily had tried again, tried to resurrect the lie by telling people I had cheated on Jake, that Jake had always secretly wanted her instead. But no one believed her this time. Her voice had lost power, her story had lost oxygen, her audience had lost interest. For the first time in her life, Lily didn't have a stage. She didn't have applause. She didn't have anyone to blame but herself. And she hated it. I should have felt pity. I tried to summon it, but all I felt was exhaustion, years of emotional weight pressing down on my chest. I didn't want vengeance. I didn't want her to suffer, but I didn't want to be dragged back into her chaos anymore. Because this time, walking away wasn't selfish, it was survival. Still, guilt lingered like a dull ache. Was I wrong for not checking on her? Was I cruel for not reaching out even briefly after her engagement fell apart? She was my sister. We had shared childhood memories, birthdays, inside jokes. There had been moments where she was kind, funny, even gentle. But those moments were outnumbered by the damage she had inflicted without remorse. Protecting my peace felt wrong, even though it was necessary. My kids, meanwhile, began to ask harder questions. Why don't we see Grandma and Grandpa anymore? Did we do something bad? Is Aunt Lily mad at us? Their innocent confusion cracked something inside me. I wasn't punishing my parents to hurt them. I was protecting myself and Jake, who had suffered silently for years. But protecting myself meant hurting my children even indirectly, and that truth kept me awake at night. This wasn't just a story about betrayal anymore. It was becoming a story about boundaries, about breaking generational patterns, about choosing peace over dysfunction. Still, one question gnawed at me constantly, like a low hum in the background. If Lily wanted to apologize, if she really meant it, was I strong enough to face her again? And more importantly, was I strong enough not to? The week after everything came crashing down felt like walking on a shoreline after a storm. The sky was clearer, the air lighter, but debris still washed up with every wave. Jake and I decided to take a short trip with the kids. Nothing extravagant, just a few days in a quiet lakeside cabin. The silence there was different, soothing instead of tense. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exhaling fully. On the second night, sitting on the deck while the kids roasted marshmallows, Jake said quietly, I've been thinking. Lily's behavior wasn't sudden. I turned to him. She always made those comments, he said. Remember the weird compliments, the way she watched us sometimes? I remembered. The long stares she brushed off as daydreaming. The emotional outbursts when Jake and I got engaged. The way she'd say, I don't know how you tricked him into falling for you, half joking, half not. But I had been too hopeful, too naive, too accustomed to being the peacemaker to see the truth. Lily had always been a little too invested in my husband even before she weaponized his name. Now, looking back with painful clarity, I could see every piece fitting into a pattern I had ignored. I think she wanted him, Jake said softly. Not because of me, because of what we had. That stung more than any lie she'd told. Jealousy, I could have understood. Resentment even. But obsession, that felt more sinister. I swallowed hard. I never wanted to believe that. I know, he murmured. But it's not your fault. For once, I let myself believe him. When we returned home, the messages didn't stop. If anything, they intensified. My parents seemed desperate, as if the truth had snapped something inside them. They asked, begged to see us. At first, I ignored them. But then my daughter found my phone on the table, saw my mother's name on the screen, and said, Maybe Grandma misses us. It was such a simple, innocent suggestion, and it cut through all the bitterness like a blade. That night, I lay awake thinking about the kind of mother I wanted to be, one who protected her children, yes, but also one who didn't project old wounds onto them. Jake didn't pressure me either way. He just said, whatever you decide, I'm with you. And that steadiness, that unwavering loyalty, was exactly why I knew I had to choose carefully. Finally, I texted my parents. You can visit, but we need boundaries, and this won't fix everything overnight. They responded within seconds. Thank you. I stared at that message for a long time, unsure whether to feel comfort or dread. The visit was awkward. My parents stood on the doorstep, looking smaller than I remembered, humbled by the weight of their own mistakes. My father's voice cracked when he said hello. My mother cried as soon as she saw the kids dropping to her knees and hugging them like she'd been starved of affection for years. The kids shrieked with joy. They didn't know the history. They didn't understand the tension tightening the air in our living room like an overdrawn bowstring. But their happiness was enough to soften the edges. We talked cautiously. My father apologized formally, painfully stumbling over his own words. He admitted they had been blind, manipulated, cruel, without meaning to be. My mother echoed him, alternating between sobbing and whispering, We're so sorry, Brenda. I listened. I didn't comfort them, but I didn't shut them down. Forgiveness wasn't ready, but acknowledgement that was a start. Then inevitably came the question, "Have you heard from Lily?" I stiffened. "No." My parents exchanged a look I couldn't read. "She's been home," my mother said softly. "She wants to apologize to you." I didn't answer, because an apology wasn't enough. Not this time. Not after years of manipulation, lies, and emotional devastation. "Has she gotten help?" I asked. They hesitated. "She says she doesn't need therapy," my father admitted. I felt the familiar heaviness press into my chest. "She needs help," I said firmly. "Not apologies she doesn't mean." My father nodded slowly. "We know. We're trying to get through to her." Trying. The same word they always used when she spiraled. Trying, but never succeeding. I didn't tell them what I really thought, that without professional help, Lily would repeat her cycle, that she wasn't remorseful, only exposed, that she'd spend her life running from accountability unless someone forced her to face it. But that wasn't my battle anymore. In the strangest twist of all, Jake and Mark had started talking more. What began as a polite exchange during the fallout turned into actual friendship. Mutual trauma bonded them, I guess. Jake would sometimes update Mark on how we were doing, and Mark would share bits about trying to rebuild his life. There was a quiet resilience in him, a gentleness that made my heart ache. One evening, Jake came home after meeting Mark for coffee and said, "He's doing better. He's got a new job offer, and he's moving soon. I think he's going to be okay." I smiled softly. "I'm glad." Mark had been collateral damage just like us. Seeing him find his footing again brought a surprising sense of closure. As weeks passed, things didn't return to normal. They shifted into something different. Not the old dynamic, not the broken one either. Something cautiously stable. My parents and I spoke occasionally carefully, like walking through a room full of glass shards. The children saw their grandparents again laughing, without understanding any of the complicated emotional negotiations happening silently between adults. Jake and I grew stronger, weathered, but connected in deeper ways. We had walked through hell together, and somehow we had come out bonded, not broken. As for Lily, she stayed away. Part of me wondered if I'd ever hear from her again. Another part hoped I wouldn't not unless she chose to get real help. But I no longer lived in fear of her. The truth was finally out. The damage had been acknowledged, and the weight I had carried for years had finally been lifted. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the delusional sister. I wasn't the problem. I was someone who survived the lies of a person I once trusted with my whole heart. And now, standing in the aftermath, I could see something I hadn't seen in a long, long time. A future not defined by her. A future defined by us, me, Jake, and our children, moving forward with boundaries, clarity, and a hard-earned peace.